Do any of you have a question for me?
I do. Can you
Oh,
hear me over my fan?
yes.
Okay. So I'm curious about, from the Four Worlds perspective, how you would talk about Neptune placements. So in human design, I have Neptune in gate 9. And then with Four Worlds, I at some point get 52. And so there's something significant for me about having 9 in Neptune, and I don't remember where 52 is.
Okay, let me look. Okay, so you have the 9. You also have the 60 and the 53. Then you have the 9. And you get the 52 in the postnatal solar. So the let's see, the 52 is the south node. The 53 is the south node. The 54 is the north node, and the 58 is the north node. So 54, 53, 54, 53, 54, 53, 54, 53. And Neptune obviously would stay in the 9. Switches to the 9-1 from the 9-2. It's always been in the 9-2. So the way I would read it is that because you have the 58-18, the 32-54, and the 30-41, your route to your splenic and solar plexus is pretty well defined, but you only keep the sacral center in your mental world. So we have to think about how that functions in you and what your, whether you are in your inner process. I mean, we have to differentiate between inner process and outer process. So in the mental world, you can always do things. And when you're doing them, because the Neptune is the 50, which is which? The Neptune is
9.
So given that, I accidentally moved my mouse over it. I didn't even press it. So the way I would look at it is from a functional standpoint. Most of your process is going on internally. And you don't know until you know. So given that we're in a rolling time frame, in other words, we're looking at what happened over a 3-month period. But at the point that things are activated and you're in your integrated design, the process by which you come to decisions, the process that you have in your internal way of thinking about things is unique to you. And so I haven't calculated, we have 64 gates, and all of those can combine in all kinds of different ways. Not so much the slow-moving planets, but certainly fast-moving planets. So when we're looking at what is activating, you're always looking for where you can be of service. And that's because of the South Node. So your inner process, if somebody said to you, you have to wait, then it sort of derails your inner process, because the mental world is giving you the timing of being of service to somebody. And you experience yourself best when you're being of service, because it gives you a sense of peace and satisfaction and purpose. So you can't read the planets and the gates just in one world. You have to bring them together as a unified whole, as how somebody has learned to process information. And then you use that timing in mental world life. Is this sufficient, or do you need more explanation?
No, that works. I don't like what we're saying, because I don't like to wait. I like to have my process, my timing, and not have other people tell me.
You don't have to wait. When you know, because you know. You know, I remember sitting at one point at our kitchen table with Ra. And at the time, Marvin and I were involved in a lawsuit with a relative who was trying to swindle us out of, steal money from a bank account that, and he was behaving in a very unethical, dishonest way. And we were suing. I mean, he started the lawsuit, but I took a really firm stand. And we were sitting at the table, and the lawyer had come back to us and said, the other side wants to extend the case and not settle for another week. And I said, no. I said, we're done. We're not negotiating. And she said, give me a chance to further negotiate. And I looked at Marvin and I said, Marvin, how many times do we need the full iceberg before we know what the tip is telling us? We've dealt with this person so many times. We don't need it to play out to get screwed again. And Ra's attitude was, oh, just placate them, you know. And I said, absolutely not. We know, we've been through this. And so you've been through your pattern of waiting to know what you know. So when that feeling surfaces in you, you don't need to wait. You already know. We know who we are when we're 3 months old. There is no more waiting. We know our process. I knew that I needed to wait until I knew what I knew. But in this case that I just mentioned, in a legal suit, I didn't need to keep waiting once I knew. So the types are only good for 3 months. It shows us who we are, how our process unfolds. So your process, Name, is unfolding. And when it connects, you know the connection, because you know what the non-connection also is. So if you listened to, well, for one thing, your gut feeling in the moment isn't always right. So you're waiting for your intuition to tell you when to act. And that's a whole different process because you're not looking at a frozen moment in time. So the noble energy maps are not a photograph, they're a movie. And each time another gate activates, it lights you up. And ultimately, at 3 months of age, you know every pathway that validates who you are and what you want. And then the task is to use the 4 worlds appropriately. Now, your inner process is much more powerful for you than the manifesting process, which is simply an expression of what you know about yourself. In some people, it's the complete opposite. So you have to look at your own design and get your own hit on the planets and the nodes and the Chiron and what resonates with you, what feels right for you. And then you live it. Any other questions?
Well, I'm wondering, since we're on my chart, I was curious if you wanted to use this as an opportunity to explain portals, because I have 27 and I also have 50. And I thought 27 was a portal between 2 worlds. I'm not remembering the data of it, but
yes, I'll go through the portals. I actually think Cindy's not here. She did a really interesting little diagram. And I looked at it and looked at it. And I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized she was showing the portals. Okay. So we have 4 worlds. We have 4 worlds, and they interface with each other in different ways. So in the mental world, this gate 3457 in your chart, Name, the 57 is in the spiritual world, and the 34 is in the emotional world. Now, both of them, all gates are in the mental world. Okay, so if you're reading the channel in the Beyond Human Design book, you would go, I probably wrote it as the 3457. So in the book, I did the integrated mental, spiritual, or there's 2 portals there. So the 3457, you would read the mental, spiritual, archetypal portals. So let's do that, 199. Let's see what I said about it. It says, although your strong intuition drives you toward action, waiting until the timing is right to do so serves you well. So I'm not talking about you waiting for something external. It's when you know that you feel that connection. So you're highly perceptive and intuitive. You tune into energy around you and know things that are not available to those not sensitive at that level of awareness. Your strong intuition and instinct drive you to manifest whatever you feel warrants your energy. However, because your instinctive drive to manifest comes into your awareness, you must intervene on behalf of your highest consciousness and make choices to optimize your energy. Now, the 57 is Venus in Libra, and the 34 is Neptune in Sagittarius. So you're not always going to trust that you are powerful or that you have a powerful intuition. It's going to feel at times like you need to wait for more information. But you don't really need to wait because you have the 58, the 18 in Pluto, and the 58 in Jupiter, Jupiter in Capricorn, and Pluto in Libra. So the 58, which is unconscious, but it's Jupiter in Capricorn, gives you a grounding that allows you to discern whether the frequency you're paying attention to is aligned or not aligned, because the 5818 is a channel of frequency, judgment, and it works. We're going to be talking about the 31st path of intelligence in the Tree of Life in this week's class. And it's all three channels. So they work together as a unit. Now, you don't have the spiritual one, but you're bringing together an emotional, a physical, a spiritual, emotional, and all of them are in the mental world. So when you piece together the bridges and the portals, the 57 and the 34 are portals. They're not a whole channel. Like the 15-5 is a whole channel. So it's a bridge between the worlds. If you have it, and the other world activates, you got it. So when we're reading your chart, then we want to look at where do things hook up. And you have the 5. So that tells me that your timing in the mental world is something you probably wait until you feel something. Now, the clean question for you, Name, when we're dealing with spirit, we deal with clean language. Because if I ask you, when does it feel right for you to exercise your intuition? That's a mental world thing. But if I say to you, when do you know what you know? And how do you know when to take action? Then you have a question to take to yourself internally and explore where in your body map you connect up. Now you have the 50, and the 50 is Mars in Libra, and it connects up postnatally with the 57, which is Uranus in Libra. So Uranus moved from the 32 to the 50. I mean, to the 27. So do you know what that would say? What is the 32? Which world is it in?
I don't have my book, sorry.
The 32 is in the physical world. The 54 is in the physical and emotional world. You have the whole channel. But the physical, the 32 in Uranus, which is in all your designs, is the physical world and what's right for you in terms of what you can do physically and what goals you might have. So it can inform you about the 5027, because when that 5027 gets hooked up in the mental world, you are driven to be a help agent, whether or not physically it's in your best interest. So there are times you put yourself off for another person, out for another person, when physically you should have been taking care of yourself. So that's how you would begin to use the bridging of the integrated body graph, because it's going to inform you about your decision making, where things turn on and off, how you know what you know, and what to watch out for in ways that I don't think we ever learn. In other words, we're brought up by people who haven't looked at our integrated design or have not been tuned in to ask a child, does this feel right for you? And so as children, we learn to live by the rules of our culture. And it's a good thing we do. But at the same time, ideally, we know enough about our own integrity to not compromise ourselves in the world. And since many of us have not been taught, this system can teach us. So let's look at the other portals. So does this give you a sense, Name?
It does. And there's actually a really strong example that I wanted to identify and hear and ask you if I'm tracking things correctly.
Okay, go on.
So at the conference here in Santa Fe, the internet at the venue didn't work. And I had a ping one morning and said, if I bring my home system to the venue, then that'll serve the community. So it'll serve me because it'll mean the recordings will happen with ease. And then it'll also serve the community. And I do love being of service. It feels good and all of those things. But where I got hiccuped is then I said to Jonah, but I need to take it home with me each night. And it got into a little bit of a tug of war because he wanted his needs met. I wanted my needs met. So anyway, there was a big place of intersection around that, where my power really showed up because of the tug of war. Like, we've worked it out, but I'm tracking what you're saying in that example. Does that feel correct or accurate?
Yes, because you knew what was right for you. And he came in saying, I want you to do something for me. And it didn't exactly, I mean, what he needed didn't exactly jive with what you needed. So in that case, you probably went to um the role you needed to play. So the conflict with you was the role you needed to play, and whether you could play it spiritually rather than getting lost. And also, if you did that, what would it do to your creativity and what you needed to do to be productive? So how did you resolve it?
Well, I think it's also funny too, because Dr. Eleanor, part of the reason why I was like, I need my Wi-Fi at home was so that I could get your talks available for everybody to have. So there's a lot of like intersections happening. And actually creativity showed up. So one of the Qigong presenters, Orion Ohev, had taught us the like anger out through the eyes experience. And so when I was in the moment of driving to the venue to pick up the cube, I was so pulsing with anger, like anger in ways that would have been really violent and destructive that I never access, but I feel it. And so I did that as I was driving in the car. And then the creativity came in and said, what if Jonah and I had a tickle fight? And then it released all the energy. It was like, oh, I love this person. You know, he's a beautiful contributor to this community. And I want people to have their needs met. So that helped me bring the energy back down. I didn't have a tickle fight with him, although I told him about that later when we were resolving it. And it lifted the energy, because that's where my creativity and my magic comes in. And I learned that as a kid.
Well,
To
look at your design. It's the solar plexus, and when you channel it back through the splenic center, and it gets up to the 10th gate, and then connects up through the 1-8. Now, you see, we call upon all of the resources in the integrated chart because they're part of us. They're internalized. They're not externalized. And so you look, any time you're in an emotional situation, the only way you can resolve it is to channel it back through spirit. It has no other way to go for you. And ultimately, when we look at the integrated, come on, you can see that it takes you about a week. So there's always a little bit of a delay, right? Because that was postnatal. So think about postnatal as I need to take a beat to know what I feel. It never goes away. So it's not like this is still functioning time-wise, but it is. So when I say to people, as I would say to you, if you have a major decision to make in your life, wait a week. You know, I'm not telling you to wait forever. I'm saying because your process takes you a little bit of time and things in early infancy didn't kick in for a week, give yourself the time to process. It may not take you a week. Like when I said to Marvin, we don't have to have the whole iceberg. We have the tip. So these charts are, I mean, you have a lot of emotional portals. I'll go back to a 4-world image. When in doubt, in the book, and for every channel, like 2034, you have illustrations that show you the worlds. And I was really insistent that we put those in along with the illustration of the channel we're talking about. Because when you look at the mandalas, you can see the portals and you can see, oh, channel 2034, for example, is the mental world, the spiritual world, and the emotional world. And it shows which gate is in which world. So it gives you a hint about how to integrate them. And then if they turn on in a planet, in a world, and it's not in that world, you treat it like a transit. Because it's an unconscious activation at a critical time. So it may not be in that world, but it's activating you in the other worlds and filling in information for you on an unconscious level that's going to be with you the rest of your life.
That's so helpful. And what you were saying about like the delay of timing, I was also tracking, you know, because in human design, I only have 46, but with the integrated maps, 29 activates. And so in the moment when I had the ping about the bringing the Wi-Fi to the unit, I felt myself, oh, I can be the hero. But then I was like, but what's that going to do for me? And I slowed myself down and it kept coming and it kept coming. And I had an awareness of, oh, I could be in a 4629 experience. I felt the yes, and I don't know where it's going to take me. It could be a shit show or it could be beautiful. And it was
But
kind of
also with the 46, which is love of the body, right? And it's a channel that activates also with the 32, right? You have that beware of what you're taking on, because you don't want your body to be vulnerable by you taking on too much. So when you piece together the information, the 32 was kicking in for you as well, unconsciously.
fantastic.
So I'm beginning to understand about reading these designs, is that what I'm really deciphering in the four worlds is elements of consciousness and unconsciousness that we've never developed a language for in the field of psychology. Because in the field of psychology, we only talk about the waking or sleeping world. And we talk about consciousness as super consciousness, conscious, and unconscious. And we don't have access to the unconscious or the superconscious. Whereas what I'm giving you in the four worlds is access to those patterns in yourself. So we're no longer talking about superconsciousness. We're talking about the spiritual world. We're no longer talking about subconsciousness. We're talking about the emotional world. And the physical world, we already know. And we're refining our language that we can use to communicate with ourselves about our life path, our decision making. And certainly, sometimes we have to make a split time decision right in the moment. We don't have time to wait. And if you were told as a generator you need to wait, pardon the expression, but you're fucked. Because you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and life passes you by. You only wait to know what you know. And we all have the sacral center. We all have the capacity to have Kundalini experiences. We don't need to wait. Now, May, another question?
Well, I'm happy for the conversation or the focus to go to somebody else, but I thought before then, I wanted to ask you how you feel about me posting the special offer in the comments for people since you referenced the book. Is
Okay,
that okay?
absolutely.
Okay. So what this offer is saying is the book that Dr. Eleanor just spoke about is if you purchase it and then email her proof of purchase.
It says either one of my books, this one also,
Ah,
either
oh,
one. Not
great.
everybody is a design, going to want my integrated. So I'm offering one of any of these. If you order one of these books from Amazon or Ingram, Barnes and Noble, and send me proof of your purchase, I will do a reading for you. Any other questions? Or if it's not a question, is there anything you want explained? Isaac.
Okay, quick. My microphone is on top of the day to all, or evening if you're on another continent. So I lean on my astrology knowledge a bit more when it comes to the charts. And focusing in on my 214 that I gained on the postnatal solar date, specifically the 14, it's in Mercury. It's Mercury and it's in Scorpio.
Mm.
I was looking at my natal my date of birth. My Mercury was retrograde in Leo. So both my sun and my Mercury on the postnatal day are, so I'm just like, huh, there's something here. I've been recently just falling in love with Mercury. It's like I'm falling in love with each planet. It's just like, uh, and this past Mercury retrograde was like kind of like, oh my God, it's like it's great. It's retrograde. My natal's there. I I can act. I was like, how do I dig? Am I digging? Is this the place to
Let me
focus
see
my
if I
attention?
have your chart.
Pardon me?
I'm looking to see if I have your chart. It would help me to see it.
And then like the other layer that got even more of my attention is like I actually had my solar return chart done this year.
Mm-hmm.
And my ascendant in this year is in Scorpio. I was
Oh,
like,
I accidentally, it printed it to a PDF. So let me grab it back. I hate when that happens. It's so sensitive, but I can just open, oh, there's the folder.
I was starting to go down the rabbit hole of Chiron, but I was like, well, I mean, Chiron doesn't move as fast as Mercury. So I mean it's gonna be in Taurus between those that 3 month period. But so then my focus shifted back over to Mercury, like, well, yeah, there's a faster moving planet. Um,
Okay, now I should have it. Hold on.
and within this, like it moves from my 8th house to my 11th house. At least, well, on a whole science system. On a Placidus, it'll
So I
probably
have your
it
chart.
could change.
Let me get you to move this. Okay. Here's this. So, we're talking about the 214. Yes?
Yes.
Now, okay, so what are you asking me?
Um, I got my question is Mercury's influence on timing. Since it went from a retrograded position at time of birth to now direct, um, and on the cusp of like the 10th, 11th house. at this moment in time.
14 is Mercury in Scorpio. When Mercury is activated in a transit, it's going to make your sense of what you need to do and your channeling stronger. You have an extremely strong chart with a lot coming out of the self center. So I would pay attention to some of those channels coming out of the self center also, because the question for you is whether you are picking up as a channel other people's energy, and whether you're discharging it sufficiently for your own health. Are you?
Well, one thing I've noticed recently, like that I've observed from other channels, is when they're releasing other people's energies, there's this burping. It's almost like like biological burping, but it's just almost like moving it from like
Right.
here out. And I've been experiencing a lot of that.
Good. For you, you pick up so much energy from other people in your body that you need to be checking whether you are, I want to say you have to really be careful with your environment because of the 4426 and the open splenic center, where you're picking up energy constantly, and you need to know if it's, you need to discharge it. And the 214 is important in telling you whether it belongs to you and whether it is fulfilling your purpose. The north and south node of the 4037 goes from 6463 to 4037 pretty quickly. And it stays in the 4037 in all your designs. So it's important that you watch your diet when you're channeling.
Okay.
And what I'm doing here is I'm looking at all the things that turn on and turn off and where they connect up. And when you do that, you can see how things come together in you as a whole. But look how the gates out of the splenic center are sort of hanging gates, whereas the 2644, the earth, and the 26 is Neptune. And then you lose the 44 until the postnatal solar minute. And that's your moon. So when you are around people, Isaac, you're picking up their energy in your body. And you become an immediate channel. And you need to know really whether that, be better discerning about what energy you expose yourself to, please. You have a delicate sensitivity, and you know when it's you and you know when it's not, but you get caught in being a healer.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it's, you need to take better care of yourself. Because your chart says that when you have that sacral definition, you need to ask, is this for me or is this for someone else? Is this helpful?
Yes. More to digest, but no pun intended. But
Use
yes.
planets to give you the information about the timing within yourself and how to use the information. The slow-moving planets are more collective. So use the fast-moving planets like Mercury. And for you, some of that comes and goes pretty quickly in your design, which means be in the moment in perceiving what you need for yourself, and perceive for yourself before you perceive for someone else, because you're a sponge. And when you can't always differentiate you versus them. Are you aware of that?
I mean, I will say yes, because the amount of the times that I stop myself to be like, is this mine or not mine, are less. And so therefore, like, I should be doing that more. There's
Or
one specific time I did is with a dream vision involving my mother, like a negative one. It spooked me. And I was like, when then as soon as I woke up, I was just like, is that my energy or not? And then it wasn't. And so I fell back asleep.
so you have the wisdom. You need to channel it properly. You can study your chart. It will make sense to you. As you think about the four worlds and the timing of them, it will make sense to you internally.
Oh, thank you.
Janice.
I don't have a question right now, but I wanted to say that learning more about the four worlds gave me a greater understanding of myself, which is why I signed up for your 5-day activity. And everything that I see in the chart that I did receive, in the graph that I did receive, seems to fit with how I feel.
And I misspoke. I just realized, in terms of the offer, I wasn't making, I was going to do readings, and I realized that I'd have an onslaught and wouldn't be able to keep up with all of them. So what I substituted and forgot about is that anyone who orders a book will get the 5-day experience access, which will give you enough to work with. So let me do your, my cat just came on my computer. So that is it. Okay.
But I think 525 could be correct because it has GMT after, that's Greenwich Mean Time.
Oh,
So
well,
that's something that I wasn't understanding.
so I'm doing this and we're going to
Okay.
see. Okay.
Yeah.
We may as well be safe.
The mental chart looked exactly what I've been working with.
Mhm. Well, then it's probably right, but we're going to, there we go.
Yeah.
And I will close my program and I will share the chart. Okay, this is what I just got.
Right. It looks like what I received too. And it has the 1:25 a.m.
Yeah.
Eastern Daylight Time. And I'd want to say that it really put to rest a lot of frustration that I've had with being labeled a projector. And the big thing was my strategy is wait for the invitation. And I have really looked at my life and said, yes, I understand that the biggest things in my life do come to me with an invitation. And I have a really, really secure inner knowing when an invitation is not correct. It's just like, absolutely not. Nobody can convince me any other way.
But Janice, you march to your own drum.
Exactly.
You have 3410 in the solar minute chart, which is the emotional world.
Mhm.
So I always say to people who have that channel, you march to your own drum. And I
Okay.
tell parents of children, your child marches to their own drum. Don't try to put them in a box.
Mhm.
And you can see that ultimately you do get the 1222.
Right.
Then in composite, you become a really strong single definition manifesting generator. No, yeah. And you have the 4323, and it looks like Chiron is in the 43.
Right.
So you serve as a channel, and you probably, being told you were a projector, you didn't know what to do with that because you are so powerful. And looking at your chart, I would say to you in a reading, everyone perceives you as really strong, but you're very vulnerable. And
Yeah.
anyone who doesn't know your sensitivity doesn't know you.
Mhm. Mhm.
A lot of the strength is the 5027 and the, oops. I also, in these charts, I printed out all of them, all the composites.
Mhm.
Do you have any other questions about your chart?
I have a question, not only about my chart, but when I've done charts for people, it seems I live in Germany, okay, right now. And I've been back in Germany since 2017, and I've done some human design readings for people, and most of them end up being generators. And all of them have different reactions to their strategy because the words in German, if I give them a German chart, body graph, they say, well, I don't like this thing about reagieren. And I then will give them the English version of it, and it says to respond, respondieren. And so I quit doing the charts because if the people don't speak English, we get into this little
If
disagreement.
anyone in this group who would like this program, Charles is willing to let you have it for $50 to use. It does not have many features. It's even a beta version. It's what he gave me because my computer died and I needed to print charts. So $50, you'll have it as long as it's available without additional features that he's working on now. And then once the features, we'll sell it as a subscription. But you know, if any of you want me to run a couple of charts for you, I'm happy to do it. And people in the class, a number of people have the program, so other people may be willing as well.
Okay.
So Janice, look at a bunch of charts to study them. You know, you might want the program so you could run all the charts you want without description. And the program is, it's a really, what I've found, having used Eric's program in the past, is this is very fast. You see how quickly I can get a chart done with all the, and it has the astrology.
Okay.
Now, the astrology is really important because, for example, your 19 is your prenatal sun, and 27 is your natal sun. And then I'm looking for 57. Where's 57? Oh, no, it's not 57, it's 48 that I'm looking for. That's Venus in Gemini. So that's the depth. And depth of, you know, why is it's depth, but it's in Gemini. So the 48 in Gemini, with where the keynote is depth, and it's coming out of the splenic center, and it's connecting to your 28, which is the earth, you're always going to be looking for how to help people. And you're going to be listening for a frequency. You operate by frequency. Now, when I see the 5027, especially in a lunar chart, you might wake up with angst, dreams that make you feel like you've been given a mission and you don't know what it is. So, any other questions about it?
No. No.
Okay.
Another thing I wanted to say thank you.
Dennis, if I put this in the Zoom chat so you can download it?
Okay, yeah. And also, Dr. Eleanor, I wanted to explain that I'm very grateful for seeing these different aspects and different views of my chart, because it gives me a more secure feeling of being who I really am. And during the training, I had been invited to give a short speech, and I went in there and I just said, okay, speak through me for all the people here. And they gave me a really good response. And a coming workshop, which I'm using EFT, but I'm also frustrated with just teaching EFT, because for me, even though it works on the emotions, it's very mental. And when I taught martial arts, it was much more fulfilling to me because I worked with my body and spirit, and everything was there. And so I decided my next workshop, when I do EFT, I'm going to work from the four worlds, and we're going to experience more physical work and more exchange work, and not just learn tapping, because I find that boring.
Wonderful. I thought I saved your chart, but I don't see it, so I'm doing it again.
Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted what you were doing.
No. It's very good that I hear the feedback, and I am thrilled that the work is making a difference for people.
Yeah.
That's why I do it.
And it goes on. Thank you.
Okay, here. I'm going to put it in right now.
Chat.
Oh, I have to open the chat. Hold on. Where's the chat? Oh, I have to move this up. I'm used to working on a very big computer on a 27-inch screen, and I'm now on a 16-inch screen, and I'm not used to it at all. I'm glad that you're going to do the EFT in the 4 worlds, because that's how I always do it. And a little tip, there's a video called tappingplay.com,
Yeah.
which was done for children.
Oh,
And at the end of it, it's I am free being me, I'm a happy child. And when I've done EFT with people and we drill down and drill down and drill down and release and release and release and get to the core, everybody wants to be, I am a happy child.
oh, thank you for that tip. I have this work. I have worked with children, and it didn't even occur to me to use some of these things with the adults. But
The tapping play, actually, what was her name? I'm blocking on the author's name, but my son-in-law, who was a stop motion animator, did the animation for it.
uh-huh.
And it was like when you listen to the videos, I am free being me, I'm a happy child, blah, 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 blah. And it's so delightful. I used it with my then 4-year-old granddaughter, who had watched a video and got afraid. And I used it with her one time, and the fear was gone.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay.
So it's a great little video on the web.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Irene.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, I actually seen that video, that happy tapping, and I wonder, when you're speaking about it, should I actually do the tapping with my kids,
Yes.
like while
Oh,
playing it?
you know, I've told some of my parents to do it every day with their kids,
Hmm.
if the kids will do it.
Yeah.
Or and to do gratitudes at dinner time.
Hmm. Okay.
And always add the because statement to a gratitude.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for X.
Hmm.
Most important thing is the tangible, concrete effect on you of the gratitude, of the practice.
Hmm.
And yeah, absolutely.
Well, my son, he's just turned 6 and just started school, so he's a little learning a bit of English. So I think that would be great for him to just, because it's a
You
really easy song. Hmm?
You could translate
Oh
it.
yeah, I could, but I think it would be even more
Sing it with,
interesting for him to do it in English.
well,
But
it'll be
maybe.
great.
But what I wanted to ask about was that when you talked about a strategy or how to wait, because you have all these splenic authority and all those
I don't
different
pay,
authorities, but
no, I don't
those
pay
are
that.
no. Okay, so even though
None of that stuff held
Mhm.
up scientifically.
Yes, so what I was just checking with you is that, for example, because I was a splenic splenic manifester, and I never resonated with that. I never ever resonated with that because I always need to to wait a few days before I actually can be certain about my decision. So I just wanted to ask whether the small percentage of generators or manifester or projectors, they all need to wait more than a week, or
Well, no. When you know what you know, take action.
Mhm.
You know, it's you get this the sacral center. I may as well share your chart. Can I share your chart?
Oh, please.
So you have a really strong chart, and you do well when you set goals. You don't have a sacral center, but you get the sacral center within a week of your birth. So it's most likely. Oh, and then ultimately you got two channels between the sacral and the self. When you know what you know it.
Yes.
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 So why would you wait if you know?
Well,
You wait until you know.
mhm.
Once you know, you don't need to wait.
But sometimes it takes a bit longer than other times.
Exactly.
Mm.
And you know, that really, that's the case for everyone.
Mhm.
We don't know until we know.
Oh.
When I graduated from my PhD, and I was waiting to know what to do. And at a certain point, I started having dreams about knowing with a K. And I was a little puzzled. What is knowing with a K? But when you know what's right for you, you know it. And nobody can tell you you don't know it. And nobody can tell you the timing of that, because all of the factors have to come together in exactly the right way to be right. So in your design, you don't get the sacral center for a week. Now that's the gut where you know, except you do get the 59-6 in that chart, which is what's defining it. So it's emotionally defined. Now, you're not going to want the timing to be an emotional timing, right?
Mhm. Yes.
You want it to be a spiritual timing. So in your case, you are over your lifetime. You've probably made choices that were not right, and you've made choices that were right. You know the difference in how they feel.
Yes,
That's all you need to know.
exactly.
You know, we've gone through challenges to learn who we are and how to navigate. And I would hope that most of you, and I know all of you, are seekers. So I would be surprised if any of you don't know what you know when you know it. And if you're not certain, my guess is you wait. Is that true for you, Irene?
Yeah, mostly, but sometimes I feel pressed to take a decision.
Pressed. It depends who's pressing you. If it's your
Yes.
kids,
Yeah.
a lot of times as parents, we sacrifice ourselves for our kids.
Yes.
That's what being a parent is.
Mhm.
And if I were the kid and there's somebody in authority, I would expect them to take care of me and not expect me to make a decision that was wrong for me. So use common sense. You know, a chart is a chart.
Mhm.
It's not who you are. It's a picture that's explaining energies, and you navigate the energies. The chart doesn't navigate them. It's a piece of paper. It's a piece of software. It's not real.
No.
Don't make it a god. Your inner self is your authority. It's not a center, or it's your spirit. It's your Holy Spirit.
I don't think I ever, because I've just been into human design for less than a year, and I resonated with quite a lot, but quite a lot with quite not so lot with other stuff. So
Good.
which actually you now have been, I've got proof now. So that's great.
Yeah,
But I do
Example of those people who know who they are do not follow something that isn't right for them.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
you take pieces of it, but you don't swallow hook, line, and sinker and think that it's the end all. You keep searching.
Yes. Yeah. And I've discussed I've had several discussions with sort of human design gurus. It's like, nope, that's not me. And they always try to find other things in the chart that kind of, explains my feeling.
That's where you want to look for confirmation of who you are, not
Mhm.
something that tells you who you're not.
Mhm. But what I actually learned from human design is that I got really tired last year and I realized I was taking all the energy from my students,
Mm.
because being a teacher today is not just teaching subjects, it's everything around that, what follows. And I took it with me, and I never I took in everyone else's energy, and that wore me out. So now I'm much more aware of,
Your own energy.
yes.
Excellent. And the four worlds will make it even more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And I have one more question, if I can, or should I leave the word for?
Okay.
You spoke about. I was thinking about the sacred geometry of the body graph, because I've seen there are several videos on how to draw the tree of life, with the concentric circles and everything. And I was wondering, do you have any description how to draw the body graph?
No,
You wouldn't know where to find it?
I've just used Eric's body graph
Okay.
because that's the one that Ra was given.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. That's all for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tina.
Okay, so when you were talking to Isaac, I could relate to the channeling, and you've seen my chart. And I wonder, because when I'm in a channeling session, either I'm channeling a dead person or someone who exists, but he's not in my physical space.
Mm-hmm.
It is so easy for me to differentiate between my energy and the energy of that person. Or if it's an entity or something, I can easily differentiate. But now I'm not sure, when I am surrounded by friends and family, where does it merge, and where do I get confused about what is me and what is others?
I'm going to grab your chart. May I share it?
Yes.
You have an open splenic center that gets activated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gates out of the splenic center. So you're highly intuitive about what you're picking up, but you always have to ask the question, is it mine? You are not that vulnerable because of the strong central column. So given that you have the central column here, this, so we have this connecting. You're a split definition, huh? Yeah, you're split definition. So what? The root to the sacral to the self, and it doesn't get to the throat. The root gets back to the sacral to the self, and the ajna to the throat is connected to the splenic center, to the heart center. The splenic center does not connect to the root, and it does connect to the throat, but the throat doesn't connect to the core. So it's tricky for you. I think, so here's an example where you're going to have to tell me whether you keep yourself as a channel, and with your breath, you can stay separate from the person you're channeling for. I don't think you're vulnerable to picking up the splenic energy because of the strong self-center that does get to the root. What you have to be careful about is the emotional energy.
Okay.
Because you are you transform emotional energy. So if the person is reactive, that's when you take it in to transform it in your consciousness in order to be a help agent to them.
That explains it. Yes, because I can easily sense their emotion, their reactivity to whatever I'm saying or expressing. And in order for me to care for their feelings, even if they did not express it, I could immediately sense that there is something that's uncomfortable for them. So I would adjust. And this is where, yes, this is where I am going to confuse myself.
Yeah, because what happens is, in your case, because of the split, channeling you keep separate from yourself. So it's almost like you go into a cocoon.
Yes.
And you protect yourself.
Yes.
But emotion is dissonant. You jump in to transform it, but you may be transforming it in yourself.
Yes, yes, yes.
To put them on a different path.
Yes. That makes total sense. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just have to watch this more.
Do you have the program?
No, because my computer is Windows, so.
Okay, so may I put this chart into the chat?
Yes, I have it actually. Yeah.
Do you? Oh, wait, I guess I didn't. Oh, yeah, no, I thought I printed the big one. In other words, the program will print all of the composites.
Mm,
So I'll print you your composite later
yes,
and send it to you.
yes. Okay, thank you.
Because
That's
you know, some of you will benefit by looking at all the composites.
okay, yes. Right.
Look especially the two central channels that you have,
Mm,
part of the emotional world.
mm,
So part of your mission is to transform the emotional energy for other people.
mm.
And
I do that in my work, but in the personal, it's different when it's personal relationships.
it's very different when it's personal. But it's good to remember that you can use the same skills that you use in channeling for those people personally who do not have your consciousness.
Mm. Yeah.
By transforming their emotional, by transforming your emotional, and then using clean language with them.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, Kim.
All right, Dr. Eleanor, Kim's not in the space to come on audio. So I'm going to be asking, voicing her question for her that she put in the chat.
Okay.
And Kim's question is, did Ra ever say why the splenic center is located on the opposite side of where it is physiologically or physically located?
No, he did not. And Marvin and I were talking about the other day, because in the sacred teachings, they're reversed. So like in Hebrew, we read from right to left because it's a sacred language, and it's talking to the inner self. Whereas the other person sees us in reverse. So I have no idea. We were talking about that last week, and I don't know. Maybe it's reversed, maybe it's not reversed, who knows? Any other questions?
And Kim's follow-up is, but the heart is on the correct side. It's like,
We're going to take it for what it is and use it the way it is and be grateful we have it. So if it's not exactly tracking, sometime we're going to know why. Maybe, maybe not.
now this is Isaac. It sounds pretty on point. Some tracking, some is what it is, but we're grateful that it's in our
Right.
field of awareness.
I mean, you know, the chart is a chart. It's not who we are. It's information for us to take in, to try on, to use, and it happens to track to the tree of life. So as I'm working to prepare for class this week on the 31st path of intelligence, it's really interesting how much there is tracking between the tree of life, Kabbalah, and the body map in the four worlds.
Now, did anyone ever ask Ra, to your knowledge, of that discrepancy?
I think Marvin may have asked him about why in the body map, the splenic center is on the wrong side of the body. It may have been a question that came up when he was talking to us about everything the voice told him. It would have been a logical question, but he didn't have an answer. He did tell me however, in the triple design matrix, that the work I was doing with the matrices was essential in fully understanding how to read the body map. Because you could not disassociate the worlds from each other. They needed to be integrated and inform each other in order to really be functional. So he did say that when we were teaching the triple design matrix. A lot of what Ross said about the body and the physiology was incorrect. And a lot of what he said psychologically was incorrect also. For example, he used the word conditioning, that we live in the not self. That word, not self, makes my skin crawl. You are always living yourself. It may not be a conscious self, but you chose how to respond, how to deal with your family of origin. And that way in which you decided to relate was based on the interactions in the first 3 months of your life and innate predispositions that you had. So you have to rely on yourself. You can't rely on a chart. You and your feelings, and well, not emotional feelings, but your spiritual core guides you and has guided you your whole life, whether you know it or not. And if your life isn't working, then you need to go back and ask what you're not hearing, what you're not listening to from the core of yourself. Any other questions?
Okay, so not a follow-up here from Kim. In the chakra lingo, in the
center,
it is
go move forward for the 9th center, much like the heart moved to where. It's a schematic diagram. It's not a body, it's not an anatomy map. And it's talking about intuition and identifying the splenic with intuition. But we're not talking, the splenic isn't necessarily the spleen. It's an energy. So maybe that answers it. Are there other questions here in the chat that I haven't seen?
Justina mentioned is asking or asked what are the classes that you referenced a few times?
Yes, the references to the classes, I have 2 classes going on. One is the 4 worlds for people who do not have a background in human design. And the other is a human design practitioner class for people who want to learn about the 4 worlds and use it in reading the charts and learn how to read them. We've done a month of classes, so I have closed the classes and I don't know what I'm going to do with future classes, because maybe people who want to be in the class, if they want to catch up, could spend some time catching up with what I've so far taught, but I need some input on that from the people who want to sign up for the class. Susanna.
Yes, good evening. I was wondering whether you'd be willing to share more about how you downloaded the emotional matrix. Any insights, any details you might want to share?
Sure, hold on. Mac, down. Marvin left the room with the dog who eats paper.
Say hello to the dog who eats paper.
No, Mac, come. Come on, go to your place. Good boy. Go to your place. Down. Down, Mac. When Marvin leaves the room, he should really take him because he looks for him. He didn't like that you left. Okay. When I was working with the triple design matrix, I realized that there was more. There was a world that was the lunar world. And I also began getting downloads about an additional matrix, the emotional matrix. And I started meditating on it. And I said to Ra in a phone call, so Ra, I'm being told that there's another matrix through which we get spiritual inspiration. Is that something that you know about? And he said the voice told him that there was an additional matrix he wasn't given. So I began asking for it. And I was teaching a class and teaching about the different worlds. And I knew that there was an additional matrix. And I was teaching the solar, the lunar minute. No, I was teaching it was before I even had the lunar minute. And I knew that there was another matrix. And one night, I was told what it was. I mean, it was that simple. I was playing with the body graphs and I was told what to look at. And I was told it was a 33 gate matrix that did not have the solar plexus. And I ran it. I knew it was a 33 gate matrix. I didn't have the calculation for it. And then when I got the lunar minute as a possibility and solar minute as a possibility, and I ran them on Eric's program, they tracked 100%. So I knew it was real. When you get something that tracks psychologically, physically, emotionally, in every way, you know, it makes sense. It was logical. Does that answer it?
Yes. And what was your first gut reaction when you got it? And
What was my first what?
your first gut reaction when you got it and you realized there was no solar plexus in it?
Well, when I did the calculations and had all the charts, it explained so much. And as I've said before, I'm a scientist. So I got the matrix, had the calculations, and I laid charts. I did all the charts of all my clients through the years. Every client who came through my doors, I sent to Catherine to Jersey. So I had all their astrology charts. So I went to my file and I ran all the design charts. And I laid them out on my floor. I probably had 100 charts laying on the floor of my office. And I had dreams. I remember the dreams of my clients, and I knew their history, and I laid them out and I went, holy shit, this explains it. I didn't have words to explain it. I just knew that what I was seeing explained to me who my clients were in ways that nothing else ever explained it. And as I began working with them, whether I told my clients or I didn't tell my clients, didn't make a difference. But I began to deal with them in different ways based on how they came together in the worlds. And I began to play with the skills of communication to see if the different worlds had different forms of communication that would transform the energy of that world faster. Does that explain the next step of it, Susanna?
Yes, it does. And with regards to the spiritual matrix and the physical matrix, I believe, if I'm correct, that traditional human design uses the dream design, correct?
Yes.
Which they don't call it the spiritual matrix, right?
No, they don't. They call it the dream rave.
The dream rave.
The solar dream rave, the lunar dream rave, and the that's all they had. And I shared the lunar. I'm trying to think. I think I shared the 4 matrices with Ra. And one communication I had from him, he was not interested.
Why not?
Because anything that didn't come from him, he wasn't interested in. And anything that he couldn't take over and teach, he wasn't interested in. So every time if I suggested teaching something, well, I taught the dream rave in November of 99. Ra had no idea what it was. And as we got into my car, he said, oh, now I can make up the keynotes. Verbatim, getting into the back seat of our car. So, Ra continued to get information, downloads, I would assume, as I do, but we never talked about those charts other than when I taught with him, and he didn't want to hear. He didn't want me speaking. So Ra didn't have the matrices. He didn't have the lunar matrix, that's the physical world, and he didn't have the emotional matrix. And if you don't have them, you can't work with them. And I did not give them to him. Does that answer it?
Yes, thank you. And I want to add a huge thank you for everything you do. It's so valuable.
Oh, thank you. And you're up very late.
I am.
Thank you.
Happily so.
You were up so late to hear what I'm doing.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Eleanor.
Okay. And we will do some of what we were going to do, Susanna, soon, now that it's October and
Yes.
groove.
Yes, I know that we need to let the young, your family is visiting from Israel, so we'll catch up after.
They are now in the States,
Good.
and they arrive to visit us on Tuesday.
A big hug to both of them.
Will do. Our grandson moved to Israel a few years ago, and he has been into nature and insects his whole life. And he's also a phenomenal writer. So there was no news service in Israel. And he and a friend of his started a news service like Reuters or Associated Press here. And Noah wrote the first article. He's writing for the English press and also translating from Hebrew. So he wrote the first article for the news service, and it was picked up by Fox News. First article. So he's been covering the war and also finishing his master's degree in evolutionary biology, I think. So he's, and they're doing the best they can do to live in a war zone and be as normal as they can be. But it's very scary for us here. So any of you who pray could please pray for peace. We need peace in the world. The craziness going on is just craziness.
We pray for peace.
What?
We pray for peace.
Yes, we do. Any other questions? Isaac.
A lighter one, not chart related. If one were to, I want to start digging into discovering the tree of life. Any recommendations on a beginner into the Kabbalah that I can
I would
start?
recommend the course that my family took. Generally, for those of you who have children, when I studied something I thought was really valuable, I asked my children and Marvin to do it as a gift for me for 6 weeks. And if they wanted to continue, they could continue. And if they didn't want to continue, I would have gotten my gift. We all did the builders of the Adytum.com. No, .org, BOTA.org. It's an international organization devoted to the study of the tree of life. And it's a study that takes 15 years if you do it every week. They send you 1 lesson a week, 4 lessons a month, and you color your own tarot deck. The tarot cards that I'm using are cards that I colored. And the lessons are about 3 to 4 pages, but it covers the symbolism of the tarot cards, the Hebrew alphabet, the gematria, it goes over sound and color, it goes over alchemy, tattvas, gematria. My gematria book, which is the numerology of the Hebrew words in the Kabbalah, my gematria book, handwritten, is over 1,000 pages. It took us 20 years to do the full study. And we all graduated.
Got A's, some didn't.
Marvin says some of us got A's, others, we all got A's.
Pretty darling.
I don't know about that. Anyhow, I recommend that study because when I tried reading books on the Tree of Life or the Paths of Intelligence or the Tarot, it was so obtuse. And yet this made it so simple. And it was pretty profound. And now as I'm going through the paths of intelligence, one by one, to teach the four worlds in a different way, I'm reviewing and learning a lot. I have the hiccup, sorry. Marvin's writing something.
Mentioning Jonathan Kahn. Is it worth it?
So
No.
that's the study that I would do, because it starts out right away and you feel like you're really learning something. Oh, and you also learn astrology in it. If any of you need an astrology background, I highly recommend my Astrology Essentials book. I wrote that book to teach astrology the way I wished it had been taught when I was learning it, because I thought astrology was the hardest thing I ever studied.
Right?
What?
It makes it easy.
It made it easy. Yeah.
Yes, I wish I could get hold of your astrology book, but it wasn't that easy.
My which book?
That was the one I couldn't order from Amazon.
Oh, the Astrology Essentials.
Yes.
I
could.
I'll make a note. I do have a PDF copy that was uploaded to Apple, so I can send that to you.
Oh, that would be lovely.
Time over the last few days. Let me just make a note.
Yes, thank you. Well, I've ordered the other books, and yeah, so they are arriving. But when you said a few days ago that you have always said that the tree of life is ancient, and it actually originates long before
it's very ancient.
Before the
or Kabbalah.
Before Kabbalah. So
the images of Tarot and the images of the symbolism in the Kabbalistic tree of life goes way back before Moses brought it to Israel, brought it out of Egypt. And he coded it in two ways. One for public consumption without the Hebrew vowels, and one with the vowels that changes the meaning and gave secret codes. So I don't know Hebrew. I've never studied it. When I was doing the BOTA, and we got to the part where we were supposed to write the Hebrew gematria and do the numerology of it, I was ready to quit because it was so overwhelming to me. And to this day, I still have to look at a cheat sheet to do the Hebrew alphabet. I'm really bad at languages. When I needed to pass my exam for my PhD, you need a second language. I could read and write French fluently, but I couldn't speak a word of it. So I passed the exam reading and writing, but spoken with my auditory sequencing issues, there was no way I could do it. So when I got to Hebrew, I couldn't even memorize it. But I used my cheat sheet and I did my homework and I struggled through the gematria. And when I have free time, if and when I ever do, I'll study Hebrew. But it is a sacred language that was used to keep the public away from knowledge that they weren't ready for. And it is available. So it's no longer secret. Although, for example, with Reiki, which was also an oral tradition, the symbols were not supposed to be written and put in a book. And people who ripped off the system put them in a book. And I put them in my books because I wanted people to have the correct symbols. And there are bad symbols out there. So in any field, you want source material. And that's why I am preserving the books I did with Ra and releasing them as source material with commentary. And the past stuff in Noble Energy, I am also preserving because it's source material.
Just to mention, just having the symbols doesn't mean you can
Yeah,
use Reiki.
just having the symbols for Reiki, for example, does not mean that you have the Reiki energy. You have to be initiated by master to student. Energetically. And actually, I used, when Sean was visiting, I used him as a surrogate to initiate somebody else. Irene, do you have another question?
Yeah, because I was just wondering, if the Tree of Life is so ancient, why do we refer it back to it like to the Kabbalah? Is it because this Tree of Life is the Kabbalistic one, or the one we are usually talking about being in the synthesis with the body graph?
I don't know. I studied this tree. This is the one I use. There are variations of it. So far, in comparing this piece by piece, the paths of intelligence, to the design system, it tracks.
Okay, so it would still be like proper to refer back to the Kabbalistic Tree of Life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I ordered a book, Godwin's Kabbalistic Encyclopedia. Would that be a good one to study?
Know.
You don't know? Okay.
And what does it have in it?
I don't have a clue. So I'm just ordering to see.
The David Allen Hulse wrote 2 books, the Eastern Mysteries and Western Mysteries. I don't know how any human being has that much knowledge. It covers everything. And it's overwhelming. And his book, The New Dimensions of the Cube of Space, is brilliant and has the cube of space at the back in a 3-dimensional model. And the Tarot major arcana form a cube of space. So it's 3-dimensional, and it gives you insight. As I said, in the 32nd path, that's at the center. So spirit is at the center of what we're studying. And keep in mind, as we go through, and I'm going to go through each path and the 4 worlds in each path and all of the correlations to the body map in that. As we decode it, be aware that you're working with the 4 worlds and you're working with energies. And so each channel in the Tree of Life is broken into 4 worlds. And in a lot of the body graph, for example, looking from the root to the splenic center, there are 3 channels, but we have 4 worlds. And what is becoming clear is that because we're moving spirit through the body isn't always represented. We're not physicalizing spirit.
No.
A spirit is beyond the body, outside the body, and in the body. And wrapping our heads around that in a mental conceptualization is hard to do. like Susanna's question about, when I realized that the emotional world is not in, the solar plexus is not in the emotional world, it was like, oh, wait a minute, how can this be? But when you look at the four matrices, it's obvious. Because we're dealing with a spiritual process, not a physical process. Tina. And Irene, you have another question?
No,
Or-
it's okay.
I wanted to check. Remember, we said something about a meditation for Joe Dispenza that is this space. I don't know if some people are familiar with it. And this really puts people in the awareness of the overall spirit that is watching this body. And I thought maybe sometime everybody could do it together. It's a 1 hour thing or like over 50 minutes. But I mean, by the end of it, it's
bring it up. Can you put a link to it in the chat?
yeah, I'm trying to find it because I think it keeps disappearing from the internet. I'm trying to find it right now. I've sent it to you by email before.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's still available now, but I'm looking for it now.
Cindy, I think, posted it in the web archive.
Oh, okay.
Cindy was driving home today from here, so she's not on the call. She came for an overnight visit, which was
I wish her a good trip.
Yeah. It's about a 3-hour trip, 3 to 4 hour trip for her. Okay. Time to stop. So I thank you all for attending. Take a few moments in your own space today and do a meditation. And if you can find the dispenser, what's the name of it, Tina?
The space, it's the space, something like that. And it's a long one. You would recognize it because it's very long. It's over 50 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will,
Space meditation.
you sent it to me. I'll try to download it if I can find it.
Yes.
Stop it.
Yeah. I have it downloaded because I like with the YouTube subsequent. I have it downloaded. If we need one day, like I could share it if nobody else has it.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you all. Take a moment to close your eyes. Take a few clearing breaths. You've gotten a lot of information. And I appreciate all of you who've been here for all of my lectures. I'm very humbled by that and honored by that. And feel free to communicate with me if you need to. Take care. I'm going to turn off the recording and I'm going to go swim.
Enjoy your swim, Eleanor.